Hello and welcome to Pod of the Week, a place where I get to share my thoughts on pods I think you need to know about. Now, it's my birthday. Today's my birthday. Yes, it is my birthday on the 5th of February. And in honor of such a beautiful occasion, I thought of sharing not one, not two, but 5 pods I think you need to know about. Pods I was like, I don't know about, but now I subscribe to. Number 1, Finance for Hippies. This is a left field approach to the conversation about money. This is a South African podcast that seeks to share knowledge and shape the money mindset of people. This is for the everyday person, and when you first got to understand the way in which the content was presented and the fact that it's a financial podcast, I was like a bit apprehensive. However, I gave it a shot and I don't regret it at all. It is limited content in that it's a few videos spread over many years, but it sets out what its intended goal is: to make the conversation about finances more accessible to people. Number 2, Creative Pep Talk. Now, there are so many creative pods out there and it can be overwhelming. So the content size of this particular podcast can also evoke that level of anxiety, but it's worth pushing through. What drew me to this podcast was the quality of the production, and then the conversation and the content followed afterward. This is the quintessential pep talk type of podcast. So if you're feeling down and lacking motivation and need some tools to get your creative juices going and actually convert your creativity into some sort of a business, this is the podcast that can be that resource to you. Number 3, Spooning with Mark Wogan. If you like food, conversation, and British humor, then this is the pod for you. This weekly podcast is unique in that we get insight into their food journey through recreation by culinary professionals. So in other words, guests that have a connection and affiliation to canned beans will have a recreation of it on the podcast, and you'll hear the story why it's so important to them. It's an amazing concept and beautiful to see the link between their story and this random food item. You can actually see it visually on YouTube if that's something that you want to do. Number 4, The Infinite Monkey Cage. This is exactly what it is. It is as random as an infinite monkey cage. It is the live podcast recording which will leave you in stitches. Hosted by Brian Cox and Robin Ince, the inevitable happens. Science and comedy collide. They cover random world events, whether it be current or past, and they unpack them in a unique comedic way, which then obviously leaves you with more questions and answers, and obviously stitches of laughter. And number 5, Imaginary Advice. Now this podcast threw me for a 6 because it's probably one of the weirdest ones on the lot, which took me the longest to understand. If storytelling was on steroids, this is the podcast. It's a unique fictional storytelling style podcast. It takes short stories, monologues, short essays about storytelling, and as they would put it, an unholy combination of all 3 into beautiful standalone pieces of audio brilliance that you get to just listen to. I warn you, this is the caveat, I warn you. When you listen to one of the episodes, doesn't matter where you start, you'll be faced with a question. Do I close the browser, or do I push past the awkwardness and finally unpack the audio brilliance? And I suggest the latter. If you're wondering how can I listen to these podcasts, the link of each podcast will be in the description, so you can just click and go find it there. Remember, podcasts are not for some, they're for everyone.